What do you think the most popular question that I have been asked over the last 18 years as a personal trainer is? How do I lose body fat? I have asked myself this question many times over the years to try and come up with strategies for myself. As we hit menopause, it becomes slightly different. Maybe not the mechanism, but maybe why we're gaining fat in the first place. So, we're going to talk to my guest expert today, Dr. Bill Campbell, all about fat loss. He is the fat loss researcher and he's the expert. Dr. Campbell is an associate professor in the School of Physical Education and Exercise Science in the University of South Florida. His master's and doctoral degrees were earned at Baylor University while serving as the coordinator of the Exercise and Biochemical Nutrition Laboratory. He knows a lot about fat loss research. And how I started following him was, I think it was on social media, but he put out this subscription service where basically he'll take a study, and most of them have to do with exercise, fat loss research. And then he'll put it into layman's terms, or he'll put it into a language that we can understand, kind of break it down. And I found that so helpful for me as a trainer and the director of Move Daily Fitness to help me understand the science behind fat loss a little bit better. So I'm super excited to chat with Bill today. I have a lot of questions. So let's jump into it and welcome Dr. Bill Campbell. So often I'll wake up in the middle of the night and I'll dream in exercises. I try to fall back to sleep and I'm thinking, what could I plan for tomorrow? What exercise combination would be good? You teach fat loss research. This is your life, your business, your everything that you do. I'm wondering if you dream in fat loss strategies and techniques.
Well, one, I think you're a big nerd.
I just it's like in my brain. I'm like, I got to plan the next thing. Oh, goodness.
Yeah, it's a good point. So I don't know if I dream fat loss research, but pretty much the minute I wake up,
You're thinking
it's
of it.
yes. It's usually I do my, personal devotions, I read my Bible, and then it's okay. I already laid out the research. I usually start the day reading research on fat loss. But I mean, now I think, as you know, probably the last 2 years, I'm on this huge learning curve of trying to learn about hormones and what their female hormones and what their role is in this. So yeah, it's and my research studies like, okay, so how long is it going to take? Which of my team members can coordinate this study for me? All of yes. So
It's
and
a
again,
lot.
I love, I'm feel very blessed because my work is what I actually love thinking about and doing.
Well, how did you get into fat loss originally? Was that what you went to school to do and thinking I'm going to be a fat loss researcher, or did you sort of find your way into that field?
I've always loved bodybuilding. So bodybuilding, stepping on stage, I only ever did one show, but the
Okay.
the, the sport of bodybuilding, which is essentially building muscle and losing fat, that consumed me when I was younger. And I loved the supplement side of that. And supplements aren't really that helpful in most cases, but that's just this. I love the science of supplementation. And the one thing I knew was there's no money in that kind of research. There's money in obesity research or, sarcopenia, but that had zero interest to me as a young man. And I was just like, okay, so I'll never be in the cool ivory tower kids club. Like, we're researchers put a lot of their self-worth into grant money, how much grant money they get.
Mhm.
They love that. And I almost detest that. I don't like the money. I like, what do I want to study? Because that's what keeps me excited. So
Sure.
I've just had to find other ways to fund. And again, when I say fund, I don't get much funding at all for this stuff. I have to spend a lot more time recruiting students, getting them excited about this because that's all their labor and my labor.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, back to your original question, it was just the science of changing one's body
Yeah.
is what I've always wanted to do, and the role that supplements, even though I don't do many supplements now, but at the time, that's what my passion was.
It's an exciting field because when you see people change, and I've been a trainer for about 18 years and led many people through that transition. And it not only changes them physically, but psychologically as well. And that's an exciting thing to see when people can take charge of their health and really want to optimize it. So you started into the fat loss research, but you are now segueing into menopause fat loss. And this is of great interest to me. How did you make that jump? I'm sure you just saw what was happening on social media as everything was starting to shift and change. But how did you make that jump? Or why?
So I'm gonna say no. I didn't see anything on social media.
Okay.
I have an active Instagram account, but I post what I'm gonna post, and then I don't scroll. I don't really, I'm very oblivious as to what's going on. Like I just found out recently that I guess the Pope died, like my wife, like I don't know this stuff. And I'm much happier because of it. Uh,
Probably for the best. Yes.
Yes, yeah. I've learned when I don't watch the news, and
Yeah.
we live in Florida, so I always have to say, hey, I tell my wife, like, if there's a hurricane, make sure you tell me because I will not know. I'm going to just use the word ignorant
Mhm.
about menopause. Like, I would often talk about fat loss for years, and I would have some women reach out and say, well, what about women in menopause? What about women in menopause?
Mhm.
And sadly, I just would say, wow, I mean, it's the same, everything, like I don't,
Mhm.
why would it be any different? So I was disregarding that population. And that's not something I'm proud of, but I'm trying to be honest with myself
Yeah.
because now I mean, now that I'm in this space, I'm like, holy cow, nobody listens to this, to the stuff. So what got me into this was my wife had a very bad experience going through menopause. She's always been fit. She lifted weights throughout our married life. She might want to lose some fat a couple times, and I would help her do that. And she's my typical like avatar subject or client. She's never overweight. She just wants to lose, 5 pounds to get
Mhm.
leaner. I would help her do that. And because that's what I do. I'm a fat loss researcher. And my expertise was studying lean people getting leaner. So the vanity side of this profession. And
Mhm.
then she got in her late 40s, had a very bad experience. One of the things was she gained quite a bit of weight relative to her size. It might have been 10 pounds, 12 pounds. I don't even remember exactly what it was. Once again, I'm like, okay, well, let me do what I always do. And let's do this nutrition plan, this
Crunch the
workout.
numbers. Yeah.
Yeah, because of course it's easy and it didn't
Mhm.
work. And then, you get more aggressive and you get more aggressive. And it's like, wow. And now I remember all these other women telling me this that
Mhm.
I just it did not register. So that's a great way to say it. It did
Sure.
not register for me. But now when it's in my house, I'm I'm very humbled. It's embarrassing. I'm a fat loss researcher and I can't help my wife lose body fat. Like, guys, two things here. One, the weight gain was not the worst of my wife's symptoms or experiences. She had other problems, and she's allowed me to mention this, so I'm sensitive to that. There was a long time where she preferred that I not talk about this, but as soon as
Sure.
I started talking about it, that's when the avalanche of other women like
Mhm.
me. And the other thing I want to say here is my wife, just because my wife and all these women that do communicate with me and say they're struggling, that is not going to be every woman's experience. Some women go through menopause with no problem. They don't have
Yeah.
to adjust training, they don't gain weight, they don't have not hot flashes or whatever. So this is not to broadcast a problem and make an announcement that, oh, it's horrible for everyone. It is not the case. But there does seem to be a subset of women who will gain weight and are having a very difficult time trying to lose the weight. So
Mhm.
just to summarize the answer to your question, it was my wife's experience and my ignorance that has driven me, I would say, to shifting my research focus. I phrase it like this: I was very reactive to her situation, and the way that our marriage works, which it works great. Like she kind of defers to me on everything health because that's what I do,
Sure.
and I defer to her on everything
Everything
else.
else.
Everything else. She
Sure.
has a question about, should I ask my doctor this or this? Like, okay, let me look into that. When I say we were ignorant, that was kind of my role to handle that for her because I know how to read the studies. and we were so reactive. And man, she was in a bad place. I didn't know she was in a bad place. Weight gain was part of it, but that's the part of it that I felt like I could help with. So there's the answer. See, I'm assuming that I see menopause stuff and that this is popular because now my algorithms and stuff are there. But so maybe it is broader. But I was talking to one of my young male students, and he's like, yeah, I heard about this and women and menopause and lifting weights. I'm like, how are you, like, why are you getting that stuff? So I mean, I love it. Like,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah. Right time, right
long
place.
overdue.
And right time, right place for your insight as a researcher to help us through this, because you're right. It in the last 2 years, like 2 years ago, I've been on the social for years and years and years, and this was not the theme. And it is now, which is wonderful because, as you already said, it wasn't really talked about. We were sort of in the dark about different strategies or things that would work for or against women in this stage. So you have three sort of different phrases that you use to allude to women who are going through the menopause transition. You talk about them maybe being a cruiser, a grinder, or a train wreck. And I'd love for you to just give us a little breakdown on what you mean by those three words. And then also answer the question, is it inevitable that we gain weight during menopause?
I want to be as good of a communicator as I can. So even the way I teach my university students, I take a lot of pride and I put a lot of energy into phrases, words, mnemonics, whatever. So what I've learned, and this is all anecdotal, was there are basically three types of experience that I've observed women having as they go through menopause: cruisers, grinders, and train wrecks. Now, I've been called out. Why are you calling women train wrecks? Well, I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm calling the experience that
Yeah,
they have a train wreck.
sure.
Um, but I do get yelled at for whatever reason. Uh, so cruisers are the women who go through menopause and they just don't have that many problems.
Mhm.
And what would those be? Well, they recover from their workouts. They don't have to change their workouts. They have energy. Their energy levels aren't being lowered. They are not sleep deprived. They're not gaining weight. So those are cruisers. And to them, when those women are hearing, hey, you have to do this and make sure you do this, I would say just ignore it. Whatever you're doing is working. Don't listen to all these black and white statements that
Mm,
supposed experts have to,
yeah.
feel like they need to tell you because there's no
Hmm.
context for what they're telling you. The other end of the extreme is the train wreck experience, and that would be my wife. This is often, there's going to be more, but this is energy levels are in the trash. Working out was a joy, and now it takes every bit of willpower just to get off the couch. Anxiety levels are higher, if not even clinical depression. Weight gain, the inability to lose that weight, hot flashes, night sweat, sleep deprivation, urinary incontinence, possibly. And again, not everyone's going to experience all of these. My wife definitely did not experience all of them. But it's a bad situation. And it's sad because again, nobody's listening. Now, again, I think right now things are getting better. And then in the middle of this is what I would call the grinders. So these are women who are going to experience some of these. Maybe they have a little less energy, but they still go to the gym. Maybe they're gaining a little bit of weight, but they're able to just work a little harder, diet a little more, and they can lose that body weight. So there's the three experiences, and there should always be that context, I think, and that's why I always try to give that context, and that's an easy way for people to remember.
And so, yeah, the follow-up question then, does every woman gain weight in menopause? From what you just said, the cruiser, probably not. But let's just even visit the fact, is it, I know you did a teaching on this, is it aging or is it menopause, right? Were you naturally going to start to accumulate belly fat with age, regardless of menopause? Or is it a menopause related issue because of that drop in estrogen? I'd love to just dive into this conversation and clear that up for us.
Yeah, so this was the very first area that I kind of dove into because I needed to know
Yeah.
this. Because if it's menopause related, then hormone replacement therapy should help. If it's just aging related, well, then hormone replacement therapy shouldn't help. At least that's what I thought. And as we're going to go through this, it's it's not black or white. I wish it were.
Hmm.
The first question, does every woman gain weight? It seems that white women and black women will gain the most weight on
Hmm.
average. Asian Americans, Japanese Americans, Chinese Americans tend to not gain weight during this phase of life, which is very interesting. And
It
that's based
is.
SWAN data, study of women's
Okay.
health across the
Hmm.
nation. So really
Hmm.
awesome, big research study. But again, within this, let's just say this global population of women going through menopause, just like cruisers, grinders, train wrecks, some are going to gain a lot of weight, some are going to gain some, and there'll be some that don't gain any. Now, the question, what's causing it? Is it aging or is it menopause specific? That is hard to answer because they both happen simultaneously. You can't stop aging and then study what happens to menopause because menopause happens as you age and you can't pause one while the other one continues. So that makes it hard right there. I think I'm in the minority opinion amongst other scientists with my opinion, based on the research that I've read, that it is menopause specific. So that if the change in the hormonal environment seems to be causing the fat gain that occurs during the menopause transition. I could be wrong. I appreciate where people come to a different conclusion, but my opinion on this is based on the studies that have been designed to answer that question. My opinion is that other scientists who come to the alternative opinion, they are looking at research that had no intention of asking, does menopause have a role in this? It's just the general aging and body composition change studies. So why I think my position is correct, I feel like I'm relying on the studies that were designed to answer the question.
In your review of literature, what do you see? Like, this is very curious to me that in midlife, we experience a lot of psychological and emotional shifts as well. We might have aging parents. We might have, well, if you had a child, you're probably empty nest. You might have different demands in career and job. Maybe your relationship is ending. Like, there seems to be a certain subset of stressors that can occur in midlife that maybe we ignore a bit in our 30s, 40s, but in our 50s, 60s, we can begin to see that there's a lot going on. And I see a lot of women with depression, anxiety, different issues like that. But I wonder if, the people, like you just already said, that the Asian women, they don't have as much weight gain. Are
Right.
they moving through their lives in a different way than North American women are, or white or black women are, right? Like, do they have different, I don't know, psychological help in place to help them through that transition? Or is it a physiological happening in the body? What do you think about that? Like, how much does psychology have to play in this weight gain where we're not motivated and we don't feel like doing things and we allow, some of these anxious or depressive symptoms to really get the better of us and we can't get out of bed? Like, I'm just so curious about that in terms of fat loss as well.
Well, with the ethnicity demographics, they were Asian American, so Chinese American. So they were living in
Okay,
United
North America.
States.
Yeah.
Yes. So it wasn't so it's same culture. I'm trying to remember when this it was within the study itself was published, I think 2019. So it's a relatively recent research article. I don't know. I would just say in general, if we look at body composition in general, white women, black women have more body fat. They gain more weight. So it's not just that study of that, but I don't, is it genetic? Is it physiological? I don't know if we can say cultural since it's, again, it's all a North American demographic, so to
Mhm.
speak.
So, as menopause occurs, we encounter what's called anabolic resistance. Can you talk to us about exactly what that is and why the need for more focus on protein and maybe a greater stimulus in our training is necessary?
Yes, yes. So anabolic resistance is basically when you impose a stimulus on the body, an anabolic stimulus, the body responds by building muscle. As we age, and this is true in men and women, the body becomes less responsive to an anabolic stimulus. And we see this manifested in two areas. One is the training, so resistance training. Resistance exercise will impose a stimulus on the muscles to grow. Also, protein intake will cause an anabolic response to muscle to grow. So I'll play this out using protein because I think it's the best example. Let's say you have two women, one's 25 and one's 50. The 25-year-old takes one scoop of protein, let's say it's 30 grams, and she gets 10 units of muscle hypertrophy, just using arbitrary numbers.
Mhm.
So she gets 10 units from one scoop of protein. The 50-year-old, when she was 25, also took one scoop of protein. She also got 10 units of muscle growth. Now, when she's 50, that same scoop of protein, instead of giving her 10 units of growth, is only giving her 8 units of growth. Why is that? Well, it's because she's experiencing anabolic resistance, that it's age related. Now, we know why this happens with protein. As we age, the digestive system extracts more of the digested protein and makes less available to the muscles. So
Mhm.
it's almost like the stomach, the intestines, all of the GI organs. We need more for our own function, thank you very much. And we're not really caring about building muscle. Now, what's nice about the protein aspect of this is all you have to do is eat more protein. We
Right.
have research in males, but I don't expect females to have any different response. Instead of one scoop, maybe if you give 1.2 scoops, now you get the 10 units of anabolic change. So you
Mhm.
can overcome this nutritionally by eating more protein, which is why we hear we need more protein as we age.
Yeah, and that's a very easy way to bump it up per meal is just add a little bit more to what you're already eating. So make the chicken
Yes.
breast a little like 4 ounces instead of three, or add 1.5 scoops of protein. Yeah, super simple way instead of having a whole additional meal or snack in there if that's not what you're used to. And so what is your recommendation then in terms of ranges for protein intake for the person 50 plus?
0.75 to 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight.
Yeah.
So 0.75
And
to 1.
do you do per ideal body
Yeah.
weight if someone is obese and wants to
Yes.
lose?
Yep. Yes. So you can say either goal body weight or ideal body weight. Yeah. So people
Mhm.
with obesity, let's just use if you're 400 pounds, trying to get a gram per pound, that can be excessive. So if my goal weight is 220 in that case, then aim for 220. I like the 1 gram per pound for people as they age for two reasons. One, it's just easy to remember.
Mhm.
Two, well, actually, I'm going to give you three reasons.
Okay.
Uh, so one, it's easy to remember. Two, we need more as we get older. So let's aim for the upper limit of this range. And three, there's no harm. There's not like you're making yourself unhealthy by eating a gram per pound. So
Yeah.
there's no downside to this other than
Mhm.
maybe the inconvenience of getting more protein.
So no downside, but the plus side could be what else does protein give us in terms of satiety or even help us burn fat? How does it aid in our fat burning process?
Yeah, so protein is the most satiating nutrient, means that it helps us feel the fullest. So if you struggle with hunger, like I do, or if hunger is a big part of your life, the more protein, the more that's going to help you. Now, not all research reports that, but it's unidirectional, meaning that whenever they look at protein intake and hunger and satiety, it either lowers hunger or it has no impact. It's never increasing hunger. So it's to me, it's an easy answer. It helps with hunger. It never has it never has a negative effect.
Right.
The other thing is with benefits, what the research would suggest is, and this is going to be true of most women going through menopause based on the research, they do not get enough protein. In fact, the research would tell us on average, a woman will we eat about 70 grams per day,
Yeah.
which is about, like 0.45 grams per pound. Like it's not close to the range that I just gave. And what the research says, when you're eating that low, which would be average for many women, and then you increase it, you get really good body composition benefits. So going from suboptimal to optimal, you lose fat and you gain muscle, even if you increase your calories, as long as those calories are coming from protein.
Right.
Now, if you're already at 0.75 and you say, okay, I'm going to listen to Dr. Campbell and I'm going to go to 1, I don't think you should expect massive changes in your physique. You're already getting enough.
Right.
But I will say this, throughout my entire career, and I've tested, thousands of women metabolic rates, just in my, throughout my career. When I see a fit woman, whether they're middle-aged, older, even younger, when they are lean, I ask them, okay, because again, I'm a fat loss researcher. This stuff sticks out and I always want to learn. So I'm always asking. It's one thing, there is one thing that's always consistent. They eat a lot of protein.
Right.
So anecdotally, if
Yeah.
you are eating a gram per pound or more, it will help. If any change will happen, you will get leaner.
That's a great point. Is it possible for a menopausal woman to have maybe she had a flat belly in her 20s and 30s? I know this is vanity. One of the things that we try to talk to our movers about is, our bodies shift and change. If you've had a baby, like there's different changes that are going to occur in your belly and your body and your shape and size. And part of our growth as women is toward acceptance and loving yourself and accepting where you're at. Maybe not settling, but going, optimizing your health the best of your ability. But is there an ability for women to have a flat belly again? Like, and if so, what would it take for us to reduce our belly fat specifically?
Well, one, I like the language of not acceptance, but hey, let's maybe not idealize or idolize
Yeah.
our 25-year-old body, because
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
you're just setting yourself up, I think, for a very unhealthy and unhappy existence if that's what you're going to do. I've noticed this probably for the last 5 years. And again, I'm a fat loss researcher, so I notice this stuff when women come visit me and do testing in my lab. Women in their 50s or that are post-menopause that are very, very fit, so they have, relatively flat midsections. They still have a little bit of a pouch that they never had prior. I so these are the leanest women. So I don't know if there is such a thing as a completely flat midsection. And I'm sure there are some. And again, this is just my experience, what
Mhm.
I'm observing as a body composition scientist. So to some extent, I don't think it, let me just say it may not be possible to have the same midsection as one did when they were in their 20s or 30s. Is it possible? Yeah, because is it possible to not have, a large midsection? Yes, we talked about cruisers. We have plenty of women that are very lean, that are in their 40s, 50s, 60s that go through menopause transition. Where this is taking me is, I think, something you can appreciate as a fitness professional. What's making a big impression on me is the number of fitness women who have done everything right. They don't change their training. They track their macros. They're doing everything right, and they're still gaining weight.
Mhm.
And I think it's hitting these women a lot more than, let's just say, a normal woman who doesn't live a fitness lifestyle, who's not a fitness professional. Because
Mm.
if a non-fitness professional or somebody hasn't been real lean and they gain 5 or 10 pounds, I don't think that they're as sensitive to it. It's not something
Mhm.
that they see. But when
Mhm.
you're a fitness professional and this is happening, again, this is what they're telling me. They're like, hey, yeah, it's only 7 pounds, but it's 7 pounds on 120, 100, what used to be a 120-pound body.
Yeah.
How can we prevent that? I don't know. That's
Yeah.
what I'm researching in my
Yeah.
lab right now.
Yeah.
What causes it? I don't know. The things that I'm looking at is the loss of estrogen, the histamine. I'm looking at some research on histamine, if that can cause an inflammatory response in the body.
Mhm.
And again, I'm not much of a mechanistic researcher, so my lab is not set up to look at why, but more how can we treat this, or what diets, exercise can we do to prevent
Mhm.
or lessen the accumulation of excess body fat.
Well, there's just so much that can contribute to an addition of body fat. I followed your subscription for a long time and got so much out of it. I learned so much. Basically, what Dr. Campbell does is he'll take an article or some research, and then he breaks it down into layman's terms so that the average person can understand what the study is saying. And it's super helpful. So I would encourage anyone who loves to learn and is a learner to follow that subscription. And it's very affordable. I think it's under $10 a month, right?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, and it's
7.99 a
so
month.
yeah, it's so great. I looked on my in the back of my documents on Google there just as I was preparing for this to see how many coaching calls I've done on fat loss and fat loss plus sleep, fat loss plus food, fat loss plus exercise. I had so many, and so many of them were done after I learned different things from different studies that you had alluded to. So thank you for that. It's just so nuanced. There's just so much to know when it comes to reducing body fat. One of the things that I looked at while I was doing the research there was fat loss and sleep. Right. And one of
Oh,
the
yeah.
studies I think that maybe you had covered was called Insufficient Sleep Undermines Dietary Efforts to Reduce Adiposity. So the fact that our sleep can completely hinder our fat loss. Can you talk to us about why that would be?
Yeah, so that study was amazing,
Yeah.
very well controlled, and effectively. I just want to just make a bold statement here. If you are going on a diet, and remember, this is coming from a fat loss researcher whose whole life has been studying nutrition and fat loss. If you are going on a fat loss diet, you need to pay as much attention to your sleep as the diet itself, as your caloric deficit.
Yeah.
Because what that study showed us was when you have two groups of people both reducing their calories by the same amount. And I don't have the study in front of me, but I think it was under supervised conditions, meaning these subjects lived in the facility for the study. That may or may not have been true, but they had the same caloric deficit. And the subjects who were sleep deprived lost significantly less fat
Mhm.
than the subjects who were not sleep deprived.
Yeah.
So it was like they're putting all this effort in to losing fat. They have this elevated hunger. All, just nobody wants to diet. I don't like dieting. And yet they're doing all the things and their body is resistant to it. And that is where we have that's and to me, it's an easy jump. Who in our life cycle is most susceptible to sleep deprivation? What gender and what phase of life?
Yeah. Hello.
Yes.
Hello.
Oh, and can I go back? Because you asked earlier, and I don't think I answered it well. What
Sure.
can we do to prevent this weight gain? I don't know in some cases, because again, anecdotally, a lot of women are doing everything right. But
Mhm.
my answer to this is you have to be checking all of the boxes
Yeah.
before you can say, hey, this isn't working. So what does that look like? Well, one, you can't be overeating. So not that everybody should track, but let's make sure that you are actually not overeating. Are you? And let me just say, for a period of time, track everything. Doesn't mean you have to do it the rest of your life. But if we want to make this a scientific experiment,
Sure.
so are you actually eating in a caloric deficit? Let's say, yeah, check. Is your protein optimized? Are you getting close to a gram per pound? Check. Are you resistance training? Because that's going to help maintain muscle and hopefully build muscle. Are you doing some type of aerobic activity? So let me just say, are you embracing a fitness lifestyle?
Yeah.
And then are you getting adequate sleep? Is your sleep sufficient? So these are the lifestyle or foundational principles. If you're not doing some of these, then you still might be in a bad situation and gaining weight without your control. But I don't want to go there until we have all of these things under control, or that we can say, yes, I'm doing this. Yes, I'm doing this. And again, not just yesterday, but for weeks at a time.
Yeah.
And let's say you do have all of those things, and you are still gaining weight, or you're not able to lose body weight. Well, now what? Well, that's when I would say, if you are a candidate, consider hormone replacement therapy. And that will not be a magical solution for everyone. It is highly variable as to what that will do. In some cases, women will take estrogen therapy and lose body fat. Sometimes they'll gain body fat, at least in the short term. And in some cases, it has no effect.
But I mean, for a lot of people, if they're struggling with vasomotor symptoms, night flashes or night sweats, hot flashes, and then they take hormone therapy and those subside, now their sleep is improved, which means their ghrelin levels are lower, leptin is higher, and they probably, won't be eating as much. Like it all sort of intertwines, which is so interesting. And I just love the list that you gave. I think that's very comprehensive but very clear. Like tick the boxes off here, women. Like check to make sure that you're doing A, B, C, D, E, right?
Yep.
And if you're not, let's start to dial some of those things in.
Just basically follow Tracy's workout. Like just
Just do that. Yeah, perfect.
you'll check off 3 boxes right there.
Easy breezy. I love that you said aerobic training because this is something that I hear often in social that, we shouldn't be doing cardio and no to hit. And I mean, I'm a proponent of doing the exercise that you love and that works for you. I think it's getting a little bit nuts out there in terms of splitting hairs on what you should and shouldn't do. I mean, most people aren't exercising. So if you're moving daily, you're winning. That's my concept. But I would love to talk about the study that looked at what is best for fat loss. Is it resistance training alone? Is it aerobic training plus resistance training? Or is it aerobic training alone? Which one was the premier way to go about exercising when you're in a fat loss phase?
So if I'm going to answer that, I would want to give context. What's best for long-term success? It's easy. It's resistance training plus aerobic exercise. That could because muscle has a big impact on your long-term fat loss success. So if
For sure.
anybody
Yeah.
can lose weight, people struggle maintaining that fat loss and
Mhm.
that weight loss.
Yeah.
If you were to come to me and say, "Hey, I want to lose as much fat as I can in a week, what should I do?" I would say do as much cardio as you can in the next 7 days.
Yeah.
But I would say, well, one, that's a dumb goal because that's very excited. But I don't. The cardio is a powerful fat loss stimulant.
Yeah.
It does everything you want it to do for fat loss. Resistance training also is a fat loss stimulus. It breaks down fat, it burns fat, or what scientists call oxidizes fat. And more importantly, it helps maintain muscle, which we know helps with hunger. So if you can maintain your muscle while you're losing fat, that enables you to prevent post-diet hunger, or what some people call hyperphagia. So the best thing is a combination of both. But aerobic exercise is a more powerful fat loss stimulus, in my opinion,
Mhm.
especially in the short term. But I would never separate the two.
So more powerful due to the increase in caloric expenditure and then that epoch. So your burning post workout, if you do something that is high intensity, is that why it's a greater stimulus for fat loss?
It's more that it's burning more calories per unit of time. So if
Right.
you think I'm going to lift weights for 10 minutes or I'm going to go running for 10
Yeah.
minutes. If you run for 10 minutes, this just use easy numbers, you burn 100 calories because you were moving the entire 10 minutes. If you lift weights for 10 minutes under a traditional weightlifting, you might do 3 sets,
Yeah.
but you're only actually exercising 5 of those minutes because how long
That's
does a set last?
sure.
So
You're
it's
resting.
really,
Yeah.
yes, and that goes back to the boring, not sexy energy balance equation, calories in, calories out. But
Hmm.
that is what happens.
Hmm.
Uh, my lab just did a study. It's hopefully will be published soon. We're waiting for a final decision. But we did exactly this. We compared cardio versus cardio alone, resistance training alone, or the combination.
Hmm.
And when the researchers matched the work between aerobic and resistance training, they were equally effective in losing fat. But when they were just how most people do them, cardio was a little better because you burn more calories.
Yeah.
But resistance training did what we expect it to do. It helped improve muscle mass. So it helps the shape of your body. And again, if you have more muscle, you're going to dispose of glucose. You're going to be more insulin sensitive. So there's so many other health benefits. So I really hate to separate it, but
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I like what you said too. Like, what do you want long term versus short term? Like, you could shift your program where you had more cardio components, right, for a season, like for a shorter period of time, and then move back into the building. What about in terms of total body exercise or total body workouts and split training, where you're really a lot more focused on, chest and triceps together or back and biceps? Would a total body workout plus your aerobic training be a better way to structure your workouts in a fat loss phase?
I don't think it matters.
No,
Uh,
I guess
what do
over
you
time.
like? Yeah, what do you now? It doesn't matter as long as you're doing the same amount of resistance training over the course of a week. We just use a
Right.
week as our guideline. Whether you choose to do all upper body 2 days a week and then all lower body 2 days per week, or you choose to do whole body 4 days per week. If it's the same amount of work on each muscle group, it doesn't matter. The only thing that matters, according to the research, and I'm basing this on 2 studies in humans, it's not good to do all of your training for a body part, let's say all of your leg training on one day. It's always better to split that over two or more days. But once you get past 2 days, the research suggests, is 4 better than 2? No difference. 6 versus 4, no difference. 3 versus 5, no difference. What we do know, based on 2 studies that I'm aware of, that were designed to answer this question, by the way, doing all of your shoulder work on one day is not as good as splitting that up over 2 days. And that makes sense because let's just say you do all of your shoulder exercises on Monday. Well, now you're going to wait 6 more days or 7 more days to next Monday before you're getting another stimulus on your shoulders for growth. But if you could do Monday and Thursday or Monday, Wednesday, Friday, now you're getting more anabolic stimuli. Now, I also understand that logic would suggest, well, shouldn't I just do a little bit over 6 days? No, because the research says
Not,
that is not any
not enough.
better.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It's not any worse, but it's not any better than even 2 days. But stay away from doing everything for a body part on only one day a week.
And what would be the best amount to train in a week if you're in a fat loss phase? Like, how many
I
times per week and maybe minutes per session?
for resistance training
Just if you're in
or
a fat
everything.
loss phase and you want to do both, you want to do some resistance and some cardio, what would be a good split for that?
Yeah, so I love the idea of having cardio as part of a fat loss phase. The ideal split would be, I would base that on what you've currently been doing. And again,
Yeah.
I have to always give context to everything. If I just said, hey, dude, make sure you do 15 sets for all of your body parts. Well, what if somebody in a fat loss phase was doing 5 sets per week?
Yeah.
So what I've
Big
just
jump.
done was I increased it by 300%.
Right.
And that's not
Yeah.
that's not
Yeah.
good. And what if this, let's assume it's a woman here and she was doing 20 sets per week. And I said, okay, do 15. Well, now I've reduced the stimulus on her body for growth because I lowered it. So what I tend to say is, what have you currently been doing? If it's a fat loss phase, I think it makes sense to do what you've currently been doing, because if you're dieting, you're not going to have the energy to do more. Now, bodybuilders do more. They diet and they increase their volume. But that also, if you ever seen a bodybuilder a month after their show, sometimes it's a very, very different body because of hyperphagia not responding well.
Mhm.
So I'm perfectly fine with try to maintain what you've been doing when you haven't been dieting, because the stimulus for fat loss is now the nutrition, the caloric deficit. And maybe we will add additional cardio in. And remember, resistance training, it is a fat loss stimulus, but it's not as powerful as a diet. And again, I don't think it's as powerful as aerobic exercise. So another contextual statement here is, what is your capacity? Can you exercise 6 days per week and recover from that? Then I like the idea. If I lifted 6 days, I love the idea of like upper, lower, upper, lower, upper, lower. I've even done whole body 6 days per week.
Mhm. Mhm.
So ultimately, what I'm saying is I can't point to science and say this is better than this.
Yeah.
Are
Yeah.
you actually showing up and lifting weights? And are you showing up to do your aerobic training consistently when you're in a fat loss phase?
Yeah.
then according to the science, you are getting the stimulus that you need.
Yeah. The goal is always to be able to show up again tomorrow. And if you have a program whereby it stresses you out and, maybe even is overdone and causes you injury, then you can't show up again tomorrow. So I like that too. It is very individual, and to look at where you're at and then slowly build on that. Yeah, that was good information. Thanks for sharing that.
But not sexy information. Everybody wants to hear, oh, I have to do this.
I
And
know. Well,
and
it's
I would
not.
say that
Yeah.
if the research supported it.
Sure. No, I'm just glad that you have said that aerobic training is really important. I think it's so crucial for our heart health and just our lung capacity, and even for endorphins and how it makes you feel really good. Like, a lot of people get a lot of pleasure out of doing aerobic training. Some people hate it, but it does burn a lot of calories, and it can be super beneficial as part of your protocol.
Let me add to that.
Yeah.
I'll phrase it as a question. Did you know there's more research reporting that adding cardio to your resistance training program builds more muscle? There's more research reporting that than research saying that you lose muscle when you add cardio. So
Like in the
adding
legs.
cardio, yeah, there's for years there was this myth, if I do cardio, I'm not going to build as much muscle. Completely false.
Mm-hmm.
I think I've read one, maybe two studies that reported that, but I've read more studies, muscle biopsy studies, MRI, which is the gold standard of measuring muscle growth. So you're not sacrificing anything by adding cardio. You're only getting a greater fat loss stimulus. You are potentially getting a greater anabolic stimulus, and the numerous health benefits that you just mentioned, lower stress levels, better glucose disposal, better metabolic health, heart health, bone mineral density, right? I mean, it goes on and on and on. Mitochondrial density, mitochondrial health.
Mm-hmm.
All aerobic exercise does all of that. Resistance training doesn't do a lot of those things.
Yeah. Preach. I love it because I love both. That's excellent. What about artificial sweeteners? Do they affect our appetite and body composition? Can they be a part of a fat loss phase for us? I know there's a lot of controversy over consuming artificial sweeteners, but they are FDA approved. I'd love to hear your take on adding those into our diets.
Yeah, I'm not aware of any research to suggest that they are impeding fat loss.
Yeah.
So I drink a lot of Diet Dr. Peppers. So
Ooh, my
I love,
favorite.
yeah, I love Diet Dr. Pepper. At the same time, I would never encourage someone to go out of their way to get artificial sweeteners.
Sure.
No evidence. If I had evidence that it was harmful, I wouldn't
You
consume
would.
as
Yeah.
many Diet Dr. Peppers. I don't know if I could completely kick the habit.
Right. But
Um,
it does not impede fat loss. The body doesn't, I've heard this before. The body thinks it's sugar, and so it holds on to fat, but that's false.
that's made up.
That's
I've never read that study. Now, let me add this in here. Some research that my lab will be doing is a Mediterranean style anti-inflammatory diet where we are going to
Ooh,
limit processed foods,
love that.
let's just say completely for a month for women who have weight loss resistance.
Oh, I
So
like that.
yeah, so the maybe the older and wiser I'm getting, the more and more I'm embracing, let's be aware of not over consuming processed foods.
Mhm.
Even though in terms of a pure fat loss component, as long as your calories are controlled,
Yep.
you can lose fat if you eat an entire processed food diet. But in women going through menopause, it seems like a more whole food, minimally processed diet could be better. And again, I hope to look at that.
That's what we teach in terms of like which style of nutrition is great. And the Mediterranean diet is lovely. It's wonderful. It's got everything you need, all the micronutrients, healthy fats, right? Just speaking of micronutrients, can micronutrient deficiency cause a hindrance in fat loss? Like if we don't get enough of those good things, like you were just
Oh,
saying.
yeah. Yeah. Yes. A micronutrient deficiency.
So for
Yes, because micronutrients are everywhere all throughout metabolism. So if there's a limit, or if we're deficient, and that's a key
Mhm.
word, deficient in one, that can definitely alter cellular physiology. One that's a vitamin that a lot of people are deficient is vitamin D, or at least a non-sufficient level. In terms of fat loss, I haven't come across that, but the research where we have people who are vitamin D deficient, whenever we supplement vitamin D and we get them to a non-deficient state, that is always accompanied by strength increases,
Mm.
performance increases.
Mhm.
And you might say, well, yeah, but how many people are deficient? It's actually a lot higher than what people think. It's like up to 40% of the
Mhm.
population has insufficient, and that's deficient would not be quite that high, but an insufficient level. So let me just say, a lot more people are vitamin D insufficient and deficient than what you would think.
Well, another reason to choose whole foods as often as we can and really eat the rainbow for that diversity, I think.
Yes. Yep.
Dr. Campbell, thank you so much for being my guest today. That was so great. I still have so many questions, but I know our time is up. Maybe another podcast, another time, sometime. Thanks for being here with us today. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Thank you very much for having me on.
Where can people work with you or find your content or even purchase that subscription? Let us know where people can find you.
Yeah, so my website is where you can purchase the research review. My
Mhm.
website is PH.D.com. And as you said, my research review it's solely focused on building muscle and losing body fat. And I summarize the latest and best research, and then I invite experts. You have been an expert
Mhm.
contributor, and I ask my experts, okay, here's the research. How would you apply this to your clients, or what's the way to apply this research? So thank you
Mhm.
for letting me promote that.
Yeah, no, it's great. And on Instagram,
Instagram, Bill Campbell, PhD.
yeah, perfect. I'll be sure to link all of that in the show notes below. So take a look and be sure to follow Bill. Thanks again for listening, everyone. As always, go move daily in your fitness, wellness, and nutrition. And we'll see you all in the next Move Daily Talks.